Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time on this Sunday night, December the 8th. Welcome in. Welcome to all of you who are willing to put yourself through more discussion about the Tennessee Titans. What an awful performance by the local professional football team. It's rare. I mean, you guys know this. I'm in the business of making words, right? Of speaking. I'm in the business of talking for a living. It's rare when a performance is so bad that I'm damn near at a loss for what to say about them, or at least I was at a loss for words in my Two Rivers Ford recap. For those of you who follow along with A to Z Sports on Instagram, on Twitter, on TikTok, or anywhere else where such reaction things exist, this was a total failure by any stretch of the imagination. And believe it or not, in a season filled with unending lows, the Titans still found some way to go lower than they have gone in this season. I'll tell you exactly what happened there. I'll let you hear these Brian Callahan comments. If you haven't already seen them making around, they're perplexing at best. His opening statement of his press conference, it was very, very bizarre to me that was the place that he chose to start after losing 10-6 to the Jacksonville Jaguars on a 5-game losing streak with the NFL's worst defense. They managed 6 points, and none of those 6 had to do with a touchdown. They did have a touchdown that was wiped off the board due to a holding. I don't remember if the call was objectionable or not off the top of my head. Either way, this football team managed but 6 points, and it's everybody's fault. It's not just the coaches and not just the GM. It's not just the quarterback. It's not just the defense. It's all of them. They all collectively have lost 10 games this year, and it's completely inexcusable what happened today at Nissan Stadium. So we're going to work our way through these things together. Halo says, sad boy radio tomorrow. Honestly, I may actually have to ask Grace to bring the sad boy radio hat, because I don't think we even need to wait for tomorrow to talk about the sad boy hours, sad boy football team, sad boy coaching staff, sad boy franchise, man. This sucked to take in, and that is what we are going to work our way throughout the course of the evening. Josh or Nicole, I'm not sure which one it is, but it says Josh and Nicole Bowman. So I assume, do many people share a Facebook? That's an interesting concept. Somebody says, why doesn't he just apologize to the fan base for that shit show and say we suck? Well, I will tell you why he cannot do that, because that's a fireable offense today. And if I'm the coach, I'm coming up with as many reasons as humanly possible that you need to keep me employed in 2025, or at least through the end of 2024, because I'm going to give you a fact. It's not a stat, but a fact today that will shock you. Again, the Titans still reaching new lows in a 10-loss season, which guarantees, I mean, we already knew that they were going to have a third straight losing season, but they are on track for the worst 3-year stretch in franchise history. And again, we will expand on all of these things throughout the course of the show. Before we get started, need you guys to share the broadcast around on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. I'm sure many of you are going to be passionate. I'm sure many of you are going to be opinionated tonight. That's great. That's what we are here to provide. This is the post-game primetime show is about as close to a sports therapy session as I'm probably qualified to conduct. You know, maybe I look a little more professorial in my green. This is actually corduroy jackets. Don't ask me where I got my jacket today, because God knows there wasn't anything else to talk about in the post-game locker room after that, but I'm sure many of you have thoughts, so we'll work our way through. If you have friends who are not aware of the primetime program, well, now is your opportunity to share it with them. You can retweet the show in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. If you are on Twitter with us, Facebook Live, you can share now to public. That's in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. YouTube, Twitch, like the video, subscribe to the channel. Tell a friend to do the same. If you don't want to tell a friend, text a friend the link, and we always appreciate. Hell, text 5 friends the link. At least make it worth all of our times to be here together, because God knows that football game wasn't worth anybody's time. You, me, or anybody else in between. Just a season, I can't emphasize enough, a season filled with embarrassments, and they still found ways to achieve new lows today. It's completely unacceptable as far as professional football goes, and that I struggle to even call it professional football after what that offense was incapable of accomplishing against the league's worst defense. Anyway, we're happy to have you in, and we'll go ahead and get this thing started because I've bitched on the front end enough. Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time from the Zen Sports Studios. I'm your host, Buck Rising. I am proud, as always, to be presented to you by Zen Sports. Zen Sports, promo code ATOZTN gives you all manner of opportunities to make your betting experience even better. They're also going to offer you opportunities to go to the college football finale. I'll tell you more about that later on because we did have the college football playoff set today, which is probably how I'm going to open the radio show tomorrow because this football game is not worth it. We will talk about football after we get to True Math Fitness. True Math Fitness, where your first workout is free as a Middle Tennessee resident. No workout ever recycled or repeated. Go to TrueMathFitness.com for more information. And buy Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer. Go to Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet or online at TwoRiversFord.com for more information. Okay. There's a lot of things to kind of digest which is ironic because there were not a lot of things that happened in this game. The notes that I made were mostly about their struggles in the red zone, and they did struggle mightily today. To look at what the Titans were unable to accomplish. They only had 2 red zone trips. They came away 0 for in week 14. They were 0 for 1 in goal-to-go situations. They had a 15-play, 90-yard drive in this game that resulted in how many points? You might ask. Well, the answer to that is goose egg, zilch, zero, zip. A 15-play, 90-yard drive in professional football came away with nothing because they ran the ball, or rather they threw the ball 3 times on 2nd, 3rd, and 4th down from the 2-yard line with Tony Pollard, who was averaging damn near 5 yards a carry in this game. Just, again, complete and total failure across the board. And Jacksonville, all of Jacksonville's points, all of Jacksonville's 10 points, a massive, insurmountable figure of 10 points, all of Jacksonville's 10 points came in the 4th quarter of this game. There are so many different ways, and you guys know this, right? I don't say all this stuff to be gratuitous, right? I don't give you all this information or all these bad things that your football team is producing to pick on you or to make you feel bad or to make you feel worse than your football team might already have made you feel. But I need you guys to understand the depths of ineptitude that this franchise has found itself. I went back and found Amy Adams Strunk's comments from Brian Callahan's introductory press conference, and I wrote about them today because that, going back and parsing through what the messaging was at the time when all these different changes were made, and again, I reiterate, the changes or making a change could have been a correct decision, but the way that it has gone so catastrophically, sometimes, or at least they have to, after a loss like today, they have to look at themselves in the mirror as an ownership group and say, did we make a mistake with the people that we made the changes in favor of? Not necessarily making the change from Mike Vrabel and John Robinson. You understand that things have probably run its course. Obviously, John helped contribute to the hole that this football team is in. But, man, I'm tired of hearing about that shit. John got fired 2 years ago from Friday, okay? It seems like an eternity ago. And, yes, 2 years is not enough time to completely right all the wrongs that the previous 3 years of John Robinson dug this roster into a deeper hole. But the coaching today, I mean, this is not a well-coached football team. You cannot tell me that it is. Top to bottom, with the amount of penalties that they take, with their inability to capitalize in critical situations, with their inability to perform routine tasks as a football franchise, it is so bad that a loss like today, I'm not saying that people should immediately be fired. I'm not there yet. But I'll tell you, I'm as close as I've ever been to feeling like, oh no, they've made a mistake. They have made a mistake in the way that they addressed their various problems. And I am closer than I have ever been to, at the end of the season with 4 games left, and we'll see how these next 4 go. But I could be convinced if you made a compelling enough argument to me today to say that this organization needs like sweeping changes, a general manager, a front office. Let's not just make it about Rand. Let's not make it about individuals, because there's a bunch of different people involved with just how badly this thing's cratered. From front office to coaching to player personnel, this is completely unacceptable. It's unacceptable from an ownership standpoint too, but she's the one person that's impervious to this because it's her thing. She gets to do whatever she wants with it because that's what billionaires do with billionaire type of toys. And that's exactly what an NFL franchise is. But I'm going to give you some stats today about this game, about the new lows that they sunk to throughout the course of the broadcast. The place that I'm going to start with is this, though, because on the front of leaning towards making changes, it's fair. It was fair to talk about it at 3-9. Sure as hell at 3-10, and with one win at home this season, and no wins against what was a 2-win football team. In fact, you lost to the 2-win football team today after they were on a 5-game losing streak. What is the level, scale of 1 to 10, of Brian Callahan and company's hot seat today? Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. It's your Two Rivers Ford take. As always, it's presented by Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer. And in fact, Bert, I'm tempted to make this about the front office and coaching staff. Let's make it about the collective here, because they could fire one and keep the other. They could make the coaching staff make changes and keep everybody in the front office, and for the most part, the coaching staff. But you can't pin today on Colt Anderson. You could try if you want to. You can make him the fall guy. You can try and make Will Levis the fall guy. You can try and make whomever you want. You can try and blame it on the refs. You can blame it on a bunch of different people. The product is not tenable. Not tenable by any stretch of the imagination. So, scale of 1 to 10. How hot is the seat of this current Titans administration? That's coaches and front office, after a 10-6 loss to a 3-win Jags team, who now drops you to the bottom of the AFC South with that head-to-head loss. We'll get into it together. You'll give me your number on a scale of 1 to 10, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch. In the comment section, you'll hear from Brian Callahan here in just a second, because honestly, that compounds this thing. The bizarre way that he opened his press conference, that you'll hear in just a second. If I was a Titans fan, it would make steam pour from my ears. It would make me insane with the way that this went down. Kyle on YouTube says, woke up this morning and thought, what an opportunity to take my kids to their first game. Maybe they being the Titans, I assume, will show up. $2 StubHub tickets at this point, and I was ripped off. Too much money spent. If you spent money to be at that game today, if you spent money on concessions, if you spent money on merch, if you spent money on anything related to the Tennessee Titans en route to watching that, I'm sorry. I wish. I'm not going to offer you a refund from my finances, because I other than covering them and talking about them, that ain't my bag. But I on your behalf am outraged that you paid whatever you paid to go see that game, to consume something at that game, to go purchase a jersey or a hat or a damn. It could be a Titans button or whatever. Whatever money you spent, it was too much to go watch this football team today, because they let you down in a big spot. So, scale of 1 to 10 on this Titans administration. How hot is their collective seats at this point? Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. It's your Two Rivers Ford take. As always, your Two Rivers Ford take is presented by the South's most trusted Ford dealer. Again, I remind you that your football team may let you down, but Two Rivers never will, whether it comes to pricing, financing, customer service, or the quality of the Ford product. They cannot be beat. They literally win awards for how good they are at what they do. That's why they've been in business for over 4 decades. Here in Middle Tennessee, go to Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet or online at tworiversford.com. So, on a scale of 1 to 10, the collective hot seat of people in decision-making roles with the Titans. So, we'll just say front office and coaching today. What is that level for you? 4.9, says Steve Jones. He's keeping it pretty cool. 7, says Jason on Facebook Live. He's cranking the heat up a little bit. Bradley says probably a 4, but should be a 9. I don't know, man. I don't know. When you get embarrassed at home, when you don't win at home, when your fan, I mean, I couldn't see the club level and the 300 level above the press box because press box is right above its suite level, right above the lower bowl. So I look at the visiting side, obviously, and then I can see the lower bowl in front of me in the two north and south end zones. So not being able to see club on the home side or the 300 level on the home side, I'd venture a guess to say that there were between 35,000, maybe 40,000 people in attendance to watch this nonsense in a 68,000 stadium. That's because Jags fans don't travel. The Jags are obviously terrible. The Jags certainly didn't expect to win this game today. Hell, their football team looked like they were booking their trips to Cancun at halftime, right? Down 6-3 at the time. But with just Titans fans in attendance, I would say that it was somewhere between 35 and 40 generously as far as the capacity went, and that was probably too many. When you get embarrassed in your home stadium and your fan base is outwardly saying, "No, I'll do something else with my day," and they've been saying this for months at this point because the product has been so bad. Only one win at home in 2024 in a 3-win season, untenable to lose to a divisional team. This team is the Jags have been awful all year long. Yeah, they've lost a bunch of one-score games. But I couldn't in my head come up with a discernible matchup that they were better at other than their two pass rushers against the Titans offensive line. And yet still, this team sunk to a new low. So probably a 4 should be a 9, according to Bradley Mulder. 7, says Daniel. Steve says 9. 0, says Hill Anthill. He thinks the coaching staff and front office are completely safe, point blank, period. No, nobody is safe at 3-10. Nobody is safe. Shit, I'm not safe at 3-10. I don't even work for them. Like there is nothing that justifies the people who have cratered this thing, who are all players, front office, and coaches who have cratered this thing so badly. No, there is no such thing as point blank, period. No heat on these people whatsoever. I don't care how much she's paying Mike Vrabel and John Robinson still. 3-10 is a national embarrassment, a laughingstock. Amy Adams Strunk was talking about how much better the fans deserve in her January introductory press conference of Brian Callahan about championship aspirations. Man, they've never felt further from a Super Bowl in my life. Certainly not in my 8 years covering them. And I got here in Marcus's rookie year when they got Ken Whisenhunt fired like 6 or 7 games in. They have never felt so far away from what their stated goal is. And at that point, yes, everybody can get God. Everybody, except the owner. And we understand why. For the ownership, it's not just that, her franchise is being humiliated on a regular basis, and not just today, because they have lost 10 games now. 6 of them have been by double digits, 10 points or more this season. That doesn't happen very often in the NFL, that a team is outclassed by double-digit point margins so regularly. Prior to today, on average, when they lose, they were losing by about 15 points per game, 15.3. But it's compounded with the bizarre way that Brian Callahan chose to start his press conference. And I mean, I get it. He's in a tough spot. He can't just come out and say, yeah, you know what? We suck. We suck, because whatever belief is left in that locker room, obviously he nukes that as soon as he decides to send criticism, send blame elsewhere other than take responsibility. But the way that he started this press conference from the opening sentence just kind of left all of us scratching our heads in the post-game press conference tonight.
Disappointed in the outcome, but our defense played their tails off today. I thought we covered well on special teams. They were challenged to not let them start outside the 30. We never let them do that. We played great run defense for most of the game. And then at the end of the day, we needed to score in the red zone. We were 0 for 2 down there, and that's the difference in a tight ball game, in a divisional game, and that's you got to score touchdowns down there, and we didn't. So we're 0 for 2, and that's the difference in the ball game. Again, I thought there was a lot of positive things. We put ourselves in position and didn't execute when we had to have it the most, which is down there tight. again, I'm disappointed in the outcome, certainly. But at the end of the day, we didn't do enough to win again. So go ahead.
Okay, so you didn't hear the very first sentence of that, but he starts by saying, okay, a lot of positive things. What? A lot of positive things. Brother, this is the first game. Again, a lot of things that they've screwed up this year, but they have scored at least one offensive touchdown. They only average 1.9 touchdowns per game coming into today. But today is the first game, 14 weeks of an NFL season, 13 games played. This is the first time they didn't score an offensive touchdown. And yeah, I know Tony Pollard had one and Dylan Radins wiped it off the board with a hole. It doesn't count. Like there have been plenty of touchdowns that have been wiped off the board because of penalties. You have an undisciplined football team compounded by the fact that you can't seem to get anything going, specifically in the red zone. You don't get a lot of opportunities to go to the red zone because of the way that your offense functions or doesn't. And then today you go over with the two opportunities that you have, but you want to start with a lot of positive things? That's crazy to me. And he came back to a lot of positive things again later in that answer. A lot of positive. Okay, so this is how it starts. Okay, a lot of positive things. And then he goes into the rest of it.
Disappointed in the outcome, but our defense played their tails off today. I thought we covered well on special teams. They were challenged to not let them start outside the 30. We never let them do that. We played great run defense for most of the game. And then at the end of the day, we needed to score in the red zone. We were 0 for 2 down there, and that's the difference in a tight ball game, in a divisional game. And that's you got to score touchdowns down there, and we didn't. So we're 0 for 2, and that's the difference in the ball game. Again, I thought there was a lot of positive things. We put ourselves in position and didn't execute when we had to have it the most, which is down there tight. Again, I'm disappointed in the outcome, certainly. But at the end of the day, we didn't do enough to win again. So go ahead.
And then you get ready to hear PK's follow-up there, which is you didn't, and this is a quote, you didn't score a touchdown against arguably the worst team in the league. A lot of positive things is the first thing that you take from that. I would lose my shit. I mean, again, I'm not a Titans fan, and it's still, it's almost like me, the Jarvis Brownlee. I think the cold got to some guys last week where I'm looking around and like, am I hearing things? Am I crazy? A lot of positive things, but you're 3-10 as a coach, and you got to go up there and sell something positive because now it's about your job security too. You can't, and I'm not saying that they would pin anything just specifically on Levis or just use Colt Anderson as a fall guy or whatever, but everybody gets smoke at 3-10. Everybody. And he understands that. Brian Callahan's been around losing football before Joe Burrow got there. And even in Joe Burrow's rookie year, right? They struggled mightily. He's seen some of the uglier parts of this. This is just the first time he's had to live it and been not solely responsible, but the face of that responsibility for the first time in his career. He's a first-time NFL head coach. And again, I don't believe this guy to just be, to not have any capability as an NFL coach. Of course I don't believe that. But they don't have answers. They don't have answers to this stuff. And I go back to the press conference comments when he was introduced as the head coach, and I'll read exactly word for word what Amy Adams Strunk said when she introduced her new coach. Quote, "To our fans, thank you for support. Thank you for your support and for sticking with us. You deserve a championship team, and we're going to get there. I can't wait for you to get to know Brian and his family." His fan base is completely checked out. I mean, hell, they've probably been checked out. Most of you have probably been checked out for weeks at this point, much less 3-10 and losing 10-6 to the Jags. The team appears to have zero answers. I don't feel confident in their ability to problem solve on a consistent basis. And championship aspirations, you've never felt further away from a Super Bowl. And like I said, I wasn't here for Ken Wisenhunt's entire tenure. I came in the year that he got fired in 2015. But even then, Malarkey went 9-7 the following year, and then they had 6 straight winning seasons. You know how far removed from any of that we feel like? John Robinson getting fired only 2 years ago is crazy to me because I feel like I've aged 10 years in that 2-year span with as much losing as they've done. And that's not all on Brian Callahan. Mike Vrabel and his staff have some responsibility in there too. But I mean, Mike, I don't mean to do this coaching comparison all the time. And it could still be right to move on from Mike Vrabel. But the person that you went out and got afterwards has never felt further away from your stated goal. And that goes for Rand Carthon too. Like, at least John had a successful stretch of personnel decisions, and maybe Rand ultimately will, but that quarterback is squarely on that general manager. He's the only person left that was in the draft room when they drafted him. And don't give me, well, that was Vrabel's guy or that was Amy's guy. Amy made them draft. Shut up. All right. The general manager, the front office bears some responsibility in the quarterback that was drafted. And I'm not even mad at Will Levis today, even though he clearly and obviously missed Chig for a red zone touchdown, and he's got to make that throw. Though when I watch that play design, I'm trying to figure out why the hell Vanette and Chig were basically in the same spot. And Levis just told us that he saw Vanette first, and you'll hear from Will Levis later on in the show. So I truly don't know how, if you're an ownership group, how you look yourself in the proverbial mirror, or you're staring up at your ceiling at night in your silk sheets in your billionaire mansion or whatever, and saying, did I not make a terrible mistake here? What has gone so monumentally wrong that my football team can't beat Mac Jones and Doug Peterson? Yeah, listen to this shit. Terry McCormick of Main Street Media gave me this, but I've rambled on for 30 minutes without doing an ad. Real quick, before I tell you what will again make your head spin about how many people, or who, the kind of people, the kind of teams that the Titans have lost to. I'll remind you that the primetime program is made possible by the Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage. GaryAshton.com. Dream address without the stress. Don't sell without the intel. The intel edge that only the Ashton team can provide. GaryAshton.com for more information. So, with all of that, Terry McCormick had a stat, or a fact, again, that's not a statistic, but it's a fact, that made my mind blow even more than them not scoring an offensive touchdown against the league's worst defense in terms of total yardage, in terms of total EPA per play, and in terms of passing offense. This was the worst, or passing defense, rather. This is the worst defense in football coming in to today. And allowing 29 points per game in their last 3 games. You put 6 on them. 6 is completely unacceptable. But Terry McCormick tweeted this out. If the Jaguars fire Doug Peterson, as we all expect them to do, it will make the Titans 0-3 this year against coaches who have been or will be fired. They lost to Robert Saleh in week 2, Matt Eberflus in week 1, Robert Saleh in week 2, and Doug Peterson in week 14. There's nothing that tells me that this Titans team isn't capable of getting swept by Doug Peterson's Jags. Shit, they may save Doug's job. But still, we all expect Jacksonville to make a coaching change at year's end. And they will have gone over against coaches that have been or will be fired in 2024. Unacceptable. Completely unacceptable. And again, I'm not saying anything, like I'm not doing this like Game of Thrones shame type of thing to them. Like, they don't all know this. I mean, the coaches, the front office, the players, everybody knows that this is completely unacceptable. It's just a matter of how seriously does ownership take this? How seriously are they taking you guys when you're saying, you're asking me for how much money to buy tickets to your new stadium? And they're going to make money hand over fist on the new stadium. And it's not really about Titans fans, the new stadium. It's about all the other events that they're going to make their nut off of beyond just 8 or 9 in any. Well, I guess there's preseason games too. So 10 or 11 home games. And actually, I think they're guaranteed. Are they guaranteed 10 total home games with the preseason, depending on how these things go? Either way, not nearly as many dates to make that stadium viable as they will with all the concerts, WrestleMania, all monster truck rallies, everything else, Super Bowls, college football playoff games potentially could be hosted at the new Nissan Stadium. Like, they'll make their money and it won't matter. And Amy Adams Strunk will probably go to bed at night in those silk pajamas with, drinking a little snifter of brandy or whatever it is the billionaires do in their time. I don't know if Amy drinks Brandy or has silk pajamas or not. Whatever. You get my point. The point is, how seriously does she take you guys as her constituency when you're saying, no, I'm not showing up until you do something viable here. This franchise got used to winning at a certain standard, and now it's imploded. It's completely imploded. And for Brian Callahan, man, I think he's a quality human being. In the time that I've gotten to know him, I respect his football acumen, and this head coaching thing it seems to have something about this seems to have him swimming, and nobody can really answer that but him. And maybe he doesn't even have the answer. He clearly doesn't have the answer to it right now. Perhaps there will be off-season reflection, and a light will come on, and he'll tear it up in 2025. I have no idea, but woof. This is across the board nightmarish, and I don't know how you can allow the people who cratered this thing to continue on in their respective jobs when it is as bad as it has ever been in the 8 years that I've covered them, and that is including Whisenhunt. And just because Callahan's a nicer guy than the Whisenator was, and he's by consensus a much better human being than Ken Whisenhunt was as the head coach of the Tennessee Titans. Like, that shit doesn't matter. I'd rather take Vrabel or anybody. It's not just Vrabel, but Vrabel happened to be the person that was here. I'd rather have Vrabel snarling at me and telling me I'm an idiot and then not answering my questions, but winning enough football games. Because if cratering for Mike was 6 wins, this team would sell its soul. This current team would sell its soul for 6 wins in 2024. They're not even, they can't possibly sniff it. With another game against the Jags, Texans, Colts, and the Bengals upcoming, unbelievable. Unbelievable that it's fallen this far. Some change is going to come. I don't know to what extent that change will be, but it can't continue on this way. It can't continue on this way. It will for 4 more games, but beyond that, I don't know. She's going to make difficult decisions this offseason, one would hope. And if she doesn't, then Brian Callahan and Rand Carthon are going to have to make some seriously difficult decisions, because they just can't. They cannot pitch collaboration and meaningfully competitive and all these other things that are pitched, and how they're going to go about playing the game of football, and then have the kind of red zone offense that they do. And today it was at absolutely its worst. Ben Hall says, I'm sick of people like Easton telling lifelong Titans fans like me it's unreasonable to want Callahan and Rand fired. Well, I don't know what Easton. I don't know what Easton said about it, so I'm not going to comment on things that he said that I haven't heard specifically. Like, I don't want to take whatever quotes out of context. But shit, yeah, 3-10 is enough to put anybody squarely in the sights of, are you capable of doing this job correctly or not? Everybody. And it's not just the 2 front-facing people, though those are, of course, the people that you have the most smoke for in these situations. I'm talking about top to bottom organizational failure, and everybody is under the microscope, again, except the owner, and even she. We're talking about it. Doesn't matter. You can't force somebody to sell the team, nor do I think that, one nuclear season under Amy Adams-Strunk, and it's been bad, but it's really the toughest one that she's had, and she's done a lot of good since she's been the controlling owner. She at least restored them to have a standard, a level of competitiveness. So I don't want to just completely throw all that out, because that's been under her watch. But, John Robinson did a bunch of good things in his first 4 years, and then his last 3, it was awful. Amy Adams-Strunk has helped get this franchise back to get it back to a stable place. But the tide can turn on anybody in pro football. And as it turned on this franchise, man, unbelievable. I almost gave out the phone number like I'm doing the radio show, but obviously we're doing A to Z Sports Prime Time. So that's just where I'm at with the coaching staff, with the front, with everybody. Everybody can be held responsible, accountable, scrutinized, everything, when your product is not professional football. This was not professional football today. And it's been lacking, obviously, several different times this year. We'll see what they do. I don't know. I don't know how much losing they're going to stomach, and if they're going to let it carry into 2025. But I mean, if she fired both of them, if she fired one of them, it would still be an admission that she did something wrong. And I don't know that she's prepared to make that admission. It wouldn't be public, right? It would be private, but by extension, if she parted ways with either of these two people, Callahan or Rand, at season's end, it would be a huge red flag to the fan base, being like, okay, you were wrong. What are you going to do about it? How are you going to get it right this time around? How can we trust you? That's where it's at when you're 3-10. Brian Malone says, Buck, at what point does Callahan lose the locker room? Jeff Simmons seemed to subtly point blame at the offense in his post-game interview. Well, he definitely not so subtly shaded the offensive line, talking about how much he didn't want to see his quarterback getting knocked around. I think he called it squirreling around on the ground. I've never heard that turn of phrase, squirreling around on the ground. But why don't I answer that question here in just a second, right after I remind you, because you'll hear from Will Levis on behalf of the locker room here in just a second, right after I remind you that the Primetime program made possible by TrueMath Fitness in the Gulch. Go to TrueMathFitness.com. Your first workout is free. As a Middle Tennessee resident, no workout ever recycled or repeated. Just the best in the business at TrueMathFitness.com. Don't forget to get that first workout free if you're an A to Z Sports viewer. So, how long until Brian Callahan loses the locker room? Well, you had a bunch of players talking about, playing for themselves, right? Their resume, their tape today in the locker room. That is not outright losing the locker room necessarily, but that is a red flag of, okay, guys are playing for their next opportunity. Guys are playing for other opportunities elsewhere. Shit, if I'm Denard Wilson, I'm thinking about jumping ship and going to call defense somewhere else after this year. This is there's a quote from Chig that's not in the transcripts today, but I know Terry McCormick had it down about Terry thinking or Chig's talking about them thinking that they turned a corner against Houston, which is, again, batshit crazy to say. But I honestly think the players aren't, I don't necessarily think their analysis is grounded in reality, because they're just grabbing at all kinds of different shit to try and figure out. They can't figure out why it's gone so poorly the way that it has. But you heard players today talking a good deal about the idea of not playing for themselves, but playing for their tape, playing for their resume. You are what the tape says you are, and that's individualized thinking, right? That's not indicative of a winning culture. I think that there's a couple of different things here, and I'm looking in the transcripts for Jeff's exact quote. I don't think that they included it because he did subtly shade the offensive line today. He did take accountability for the defense's part in this. They only had one sack. And, by the way, Houston didn't get a sack against Mac Jones last week, and that's a far superior pass rush. But still, listen to Will Levis talk about just the game today, not necessarily about the locker room. I don't know what you say to these guys to try and get them to believe that you're the right person to fix this, when all you've done is lead them to losses.
He was coming from the backside, coasting. They clouded it, so I saw the cloud corner, and then he retraced back to the corner, so I just got it to him late. You don't love throwing those in the cloud, but sometimes that happens, and it's just a late response. But, I can maybe get it to him earlier, and he can turn upfield, but, sucks that we were that close, but couldn't get it done on fourth down either.
How discouraging to lose, and especially some of the missed opportunities on offense?
It sucks. Got to be better in the red zone. I feel like I played one of my cleanest games all year, except for 2 plays where we could have scored on both of them.
Speaking of that, Chig, did you not see him?
I just saw Nick first. He flashed. I thought he had a step on him. And if I would have continued on, I would see Chig. But, yeah, it sucks to see someone wide open right after you release the ball.
Did you have any limitations after the hit in the first half?
Yeah, I've sprained AC joints, so, I'm playing through that. I've been playing through it all year, and I made it worse through that hit. Shot it up, played through it. Still able to play, but not fun.
Was there any limitations, after coming out in the first part of the second half, and, was there anything that you felt like?
I was just going to be more cautious with just throwing the ball away and not trying to extend plays and not putting myself in harm's way and trying to take any hits. So that was really the only thing. I knew I could still make the throws, just try to be a little more careful.
That's Will Levis speaking at the podium today. He's looking for answers. He doesn't have any. Again, this was, after having a month, 4 games of solid play, today obviously wasn't his best day. He just missed Chick. But I'd be curious to see that concept again on tape to understand, or to have Callahan better explain why the hell the both tight ends are sitting there, and he just happened to see Vinette first and try to throw it to him before Chig even was a part of his recognition there. Colin says, get Amy on the radio show this week, Buck. Brother, so I have been a reporter. I have been a beat reporter, or I guess I'm not technically a beat reporter anymore because I'm not at practice every day. I only get to go to practice 2 days a week because of the radio schedule. There's 3 days of practice a week, and I go to every game, obviously. So, the one day technically doesn't make me a beat guy because I'm not there every day, but every day but Fridays. So the entire time that I've been covering the Titans, it's my 8th season, right? Coming up on, it'll be 10 years living in Nashville in August, which is crazy. You guys, you're going to hate it when I start officially calling myself a Tennessean after a decade living here, but that's what it is. Amy, since taking over as controlling owner in 2015, has never given a press conference where she took questions. Never once. And that's a press conference. That's not a radio show appearance. She has done one individual interview after firing Vrabel with Teresa Walker of the Associated Press. The rest of us were not included in that. That was a respect, and it's not anything to do with Teresa, but it's pretty. It's not like Teresa didn't ask her tough questions or anything like that, or ask her the questions that are required to be asked in that situation. But it felt like a safe space for Amy to go into that interview with just one person, not worried about back and forth and follow-ups and things that can fluster people in press conferences that actually end up getting to the truth of the matter in some circumstances. But she's given press conferences when they drafted Jeff, didn't take questions because of the video of Jeff in high school, and the domestic issue that obviously went down there. She gave a press conference when they introduced Vrabel, and she spoke at that press conference but didn't take questions. She gave a press conference when they introduced Rand, and she did not take questions at that. She gave a press conference when they introduced Callahan, and that was the extent of it. She's also given press conferences regarding the opening of the stadium, but it's always been prepared remarks. It's never been fielding questions from us. You think she's coming on a radio show? You're nuts. That is not a safe environment for her, and I don't think as an organization they would put her in that spot, nor do I think she has any desire to appear. There's no requirement. There's zero requirement for her to do that. That's the privilege of being an owner. It's her thing. She gets to do what she wants with it. She'll speak when she wants to, and she doesn't have to take questions unless she wants to. Jerry is the exception, not the rule. Mickey says, why the hell is she an owner for if she doesn't want to answer questions that we need to hear addressed? Oh, because she doesn't give a shit about that. You know how much money these things make? What do you mean? Why would anybody be an NFL owner and then take questions? Dan Snyder, NFL owner, and got one of the few that they actually got to sell his team. But you know who got to keep the money on the sale? Dan Snyder. These things are generational type wealth type of stuff, beyond generational. They're now having to welcome private equity firms in here to offset some of the costs so they can make NFL teams more affordable for ownership, for potential ownership groups, because there's only so many Walmart, Amazon, mega billionaire, like top 1% of even the top 1% type of people, type of rich out there that don't already have one of these teams. And shit, the Walton family, Walmart family, has 2 of them in the Broncos and the Rams, because Kroenke married into the Walton family, the Walmart family. So no, what does Amy have to take questions for? There's no reason whatsoever. I don't want to dismiss that, Mickey, but it's the easiest answer in the world. Why doesn't she take questions? Why is she an NFL owner? Because money is always the answer to all of your questions. The Titans with the new stadium will be, I wonder where the Titans, in fact, I could probably Google this, Titans NFL franchise value, let's see if we can't get at least a Forbes article here on the state of, valued at around $4.9 billion, according to Forbes. That's an 11% increase from the previous year, and that's after they won 6 games. The 26% increase in value makes them one of the most rapidly growing in value because she got the thing done that NFL owners considered a crowning achievement. She got public money to build a new stadium. It's just going to make more money hand over fist. And yes, you put $700 million in of their funds, and they are, as a franchise, responsible for any cost overruns, which there will be cost overruns. But man, come on. Jerry Jones is not every NFL owner. Jim Irsay takes questions. He's not every NFL owner, right? Those are the two most out there NFL owners. Most of them want to hide in the shadows, make their money, show up at games, take pictures, sign some shit, and get on with their day. That's what it is at this point. $4.9 billion for a franchise that is not historically successful. Not historically successful, but there's some valuation of the Houston Oilers in there as well. But the stadium, that valuation is going to skyrocket once the stadium is officially open in 2027 at this point. So that's where things are right now. The most disappointing part of it, I mean, we can talk about the most disappointing part of the loss, I guess, at this point. But the most disappointing part of the loss is the fact that they are going to go winless against coaches who are probably going to get fired at the end of the year, that they have an offensive-minded head coach, an offensive play caller as their head coach, and they managed only 6 points against the Jacksonville Jags. The first time they haven't scored an offensive touchdown in a game this season. Again, new lows being reached everywhere. Just when you think they can't drop the ball somewhere where they've been able to maintain, they still do it in spectacular fashion. And just Mac Jones, the Jags aren't good. This was not a good Jags team that came in here and won on the road today. Titans are worse. And that is not a thought that had even honestly crossed my mind doing 2 hours of pregame with Blaine Bishop and Kayla Anderson today. Just crazy. Absolutely crazy. Anyway, should we do something positive? Should we do a little Sunday Fun Day? Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch in the comment section. The college football playoff did come out earlier this morning. The 12-team bracket has been officially released. My Sunday Fun Day, and listen, I harbor no personal ill will towards Alabama fans, but I do think it's a little funny the way that Alabama fans are having to experience this new world without Nick Saban as their head coach, because Alabama with Nick Saban probably gets in the 12-team playoff this year. Alabama without Nick Saban, they're playing in like the Gator Bowl or some shit.
Well, I think one of the things that I've mentioned, throughout this football season is if we don't take strength of schedule into consideration, is there any benefit to scheduling really good teams in the future? Like, here at Alabama, we're supposed to play Notre Dame, Ohio State, Wisconsin, Florida State in the future outside the league. Well, those are great games for fans to see, and that's what I think we should be doing. In college football is creating more good inventory for great games that people are interested in. But do you enhance people wanting to do that? What's the athletic director going to do? He may go cancel all those games now, knowing that the SEC is tough enough. But at the same time, I do think the best teams are in the playoff, which I think is most important. And no coach should have any complaint about what his circumstance is relative to getting in the playoffs or out of the playoffs, because they all controlled their own destiny, and they all had opportunities, and they had some flaws and bad losses that contributed to their circumstance. So this could be a learning lesson for each and every team and every individual on those teams.
It's a pretty diplomatic answer from Brian Callahan, from Nick Saban. Far from Brian Callahan, Nick Saban, the greatest coach in the history of college football. But a pretty diplomatic answer and a pretty fair answer, I thought, on Alabama. Everybody had the opportunity to control their own destiny. It's a 12-team playoff. It's never been easier to make the postseason. Still some obvious adversity and things like that. But to have the bracket out is cool. I'm looking forward to it. Thank God Tennessee, the University of Tennessee, has a team in the playoff, because I don't know what the hell else I'm going to talk about for the month of December with where the Titans are trending at this point, at least some level of national championship contention, although at Ohio State in the first round, a tough draw. I'm looking forward to the battle for Indiana. Indiana at Notre Dame is a great game. There's a couple of great matchups in the first round of the college football playoff. I'm looking forward to it in general. So that was my Sunday Fun Day today. All right. That's all I've got on a 3-win football team, at least until tomorrow, when I'll do 3 hours. I'll do an hour of radio tomorrow for every win that your football team has. That much I can promise you. tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. on 104.5 The Zone. We got a lot more stuff to work through. We'll carry Brian out in Callahan's film review press conference, we'll call it, because that's typically what the best version of those post-game press conferences are, is the day after he's had the opportunity to see things from the perspective that you've seen them and from we've seen them, and obviously whatever the All-22 tells. Tom M. says, or let's talk about the Titans, who the Titans should draft in 2025. Tom, listen to me, okay? Listen to me closely. It is still the 2024 regular season. Your football team is cheeks. Yes, I understand that. Your football team is now trending towards a top 5 pick in Tankathon, although they're really not even that close. I think they only bumped down, or I guess up, one spot in terms of the draft order, because there's still plenty of bad teams in the NFL. I would rather take a drill bit to my temple than spend more time talking about draft stuff while professional football is still ongoing. There will be a time when I have no choice, and you will make me have no other choice but to talk draft for 4 more months, but you will not wish an additional month of draft talk on me. I don't care how many more games they lose. I don't care how bleak it gets. I don't care how out you are or in you are on your quarterback. I am not talking draft until such time as I absolutely have to talk draft. And even then, I'm going to take a week of vacation after the season's over. And then we'll get to talking about draft, because that's no, you won't. You can't. You won't make me do it. I simply won't. I simply will not. All right. That is going to do it for us this evening. Ben Hall says, at this point, Buck, who do you even tank for? I don't know, man. Like, you're probably getting a pass rusher or a wide receiver in the first round. Unless Will Levis goes nuclear in the next couple of weeks. So I don't know. I don't know where you're going to end up picking. I don't even know that they could screw around and mess even that up and end up picking like 12th based on how the rest of the schedule looks. But based on what this team produced or did not produce today, I'm not sure. There's not a case for them for being the worst team in football, even though there's teams out there that still only have 2 wins on the season. Just absolutely brutal. Anyway, that is going to do it for us tonight. Radio show tomorrow, 10 to 1 on 104.5 The Zone. We'll see you there.
Go home! Go home! Go home! You're embarrassing Nashville. Go home!